that one thing I've realized is that there's a great hypocrisy in allowing films that glorify or even sort of sexify violence to get PG and PG-13 ratings time and time and time and time again. And then for them to bring down the hammer on a film like this on behalf of American family values, to me just seems totally out of whack. And the kids in the film asked us to hold strong and fight this R. An extraordinary young woman, a 17-year-old student from Ann Arbor, Michigan, young lesbian. She just turned 17. She herself was a victim of very serious bullying. Launched a petition on change.org that now I think is at 520,000 signatures. And not just signatures, but people sharing stories and memories and connecting and supporting each other. So in a way, this rating thing has really changed the game for this film in a way that I'm actually like really happy about, even though we were dealing with this what felt like a very unfair rating. And that's why when I say that like it was really meaningful that Canada gave it a PG and in Quebec a G, it was, of course, right? I did do my first drinking in Montreal. So, look, you know, I can tell you that in the midst of the battle, we would get calls from our team here in Canada, and they would say, "You're not going to believe this, but BC just gave us a PG," and like we would just cheer because it gave us the strength to keep fighting. So, you know, I'm very grateful for their judgment and the process that they, the consideration and thought that they gave to this film. And, you know, we're doing everything that we can to make it relevant and build really powerful partnerships and tools and resources around it so that when this dream of seeing whole schools sign on to go see this film, that I know it's going to be meaningful, that they're going to, you know, sign a contract that says they're going to use this curriculum, that they're going to engage with youth partnerships, that it's going to be a whole community contract that includes students and teachers and cafeteria staff and bus drivers and administrators and school board members and parents. That's awesome, and I think that, you know, it's like the rating hasn't stopped us in the States because people have brought their own thoughtful analysis to the film, and that's been very rewarding.
And always great to hear that we're supporting it here in Canada, with the PG rating.
Yeah.
Anyone who loves documentary film and is interested in the hypocrisy of the MPAA, this film is not yet rated. It's a wonderful documentary that outlines the hypocrisy of the MPAA. Maybe we could take another question over here.
Hi, I'm a grade 8 student at East Alternative School, and it's a really small school. There are 3 teachers, 32 kids in my class, and that's the only grade 8 class. And what we have done as a school is try to stand up and stop bullying. And one of the things that we have done is every week, everyone in the school for 45 minutes comes and sits down in a full school circle, and we talk about issues, and they're not always bullying, but there very often are, and if something comes up, it gets stopped there and then. And at the start of the school, you get to hear everyone's stories. Most people are crying. It is very sad, because people come here because they've been bullied in so many different ways in so many different places. But another thing we do, which I think is even more powerful, is we don't call a bystander a bystander. In Canada, if you see a theft or a murder, you are called a witness, and it is a crime if you do not report it. In our school, you are called a witness. You are responsible for stopping it and reporting it. And our goal, and what we've started to do now, is we sort of have a little play and a little shadow dance, which is at the start of the year you make a mask and you basically talk about your feelings. And we've gone around to other schools and presented this and done a full school circle there and tried to spread the message to stop bullying. So basically my question is, what do you think should be the next step from here? What do you want to see happen?
Very good.
That's exactly what needs to happen. You know, certainly congratulations to all of you guys, and I think if I can leave one message with the audience, I have the privilege to travel around and see all of our schools in Ontario, and every time I go into a school, I hear from our students and what they are doing, whether it's in ESA, whether it's in an elementary school, whether it's in the north, in the south. The kids really get it, and they want to make a difference, and we need the adults in their lives, whether they're adults like myself, whether they're adults like yourselves, to understand how we too can be part of that solution and how we can help ensure that we teach kids from the youngest ages empathy, right? We have some great programs in Ontario that are now around the world. Roots of Empathy would be an example where we're teaching the youngest kids what is empathy and how do you make sure you raise empathetic kids. You raise them at home and in the school. Schools have a role to play in terms of the culture and the climate, and as do communities. So coming out of the Accepting Schools Act, when we finally get that piece of legislation passed in the Ontario legislature, which we are anxious to do, it's part of the whole school, whole community. Beyond the school, we have a lot of, whether it's the locker room. I mean, we're focusing on schools here, and some of you might think, oh, that has nothing to do with me. I don't have kids in school, I'm not in school. Well, maybe you're on a team, maybe you're in a locker room, maybe you're going to hear something that you should say, that's not okay, I shouldn't have said that. You know, we need to bring that culture and acceptance climate beyond our schools, because our schools reflect our communities, good or bad. And in Ontario, I want it to reflect good on our communities. And I think we have a lot of opportunity to have that happen.
I'm wondering, do you think a film like this will be helpful in the legislative push?
There's no doubt that there's a desire in Ontario on the part of all parties to end bullying, where we sometimes might see discrepancies in the perspective is I want to name it. I want to name misogyny, homophobia, racism, discrimination because of disability, because of religion, because of race, right? You can't solve the problem until you identify it. And we have a generation of people that grew up believing sticks and stones could break your bones, but words would never hurt you. I start my speeches in school saying, we now know that's not true. It's not true. And let's take that step. It's not a rite of passage. It's not acceptable. In Ontario, we want our kids to succeed in school. We know that they won't succeed if they don't feel safe. It's a key part of ensuring success in our schools, and that's why everybody has to be part of the solution, and we have to identify the behaviors that are negative in schools and do something about them.
Can I also add to what I think you sat down, I think, but what you're doing right is also that your whole school has a vocabulary that's shared. And I think that that's one of the things that we really encourage within school communities is that it's knowing that we are all talking the same language. And that starts with the students, but it's also in conversation with their teachers, that we are on the same page together. And that's in a facing history school and in a facing history classroom, that we're using the vocabulary. I love that you're using the term witness. It's about the witness. It's about the bystander, that role. It's about the upstander, and that's just as important a role when you're talking about those who stand up to make a difference. It's about the universe of obligation. Who's in that? And so this is the language that I think is critical to sort of building the foundation of a school. And your school's amazing in doing that.
Yeah, I just want to add, wherever you went, there's a big row of lights up here, so I have a hard time seeing out there.
Oh, there you are.
That is just an amazing initiative that your school has and that you folks take part in. And those types of conversations need to happen in schools all over the place, let's face it. And other conversations need to happen around language as well. I have to sort of second what you were saying about language and your use of the word witness. There's language around bullying that sort of minimizes bullying sometimes for people who are not inside this room. And I think sometimes we can parcel bullying out into what it actually is. And what it actually is assault. And what it actually is harassment. And what it actually is intimidation. And it's very, very strong language that sometimes gets drowned out in the word bullying, which we sort of see as, some people see as sort of just a schoolyard thing. So I think the use of language to sort of expand what bullying actually is and make it a little bit more factual. I mean, forgive the example, but if I turned around and I hit Lee, nobody would say I bullied him. They'd say I assaulted him. And I think that's the kind of language that sometimes...
Yeah, and I could get a restraining order in like 10 minutes, right?
Let's call it what it is. So more conversations about what it is, more conversations in the schools amongst the students to build empathy so that the whole culture starts to change, I think is really, really essential. So you waved up there, so I saw you. Thank you very much for that example. I hope that that example gets hold of everybody.
Yeah, I want to add that actually, I think that there's, like, we are truly in like a zeitgeist with this issue, and that this is the tipping point right now. Like when I hear this student and what you're doing, and the stories that we're hearing all the time, I'm more hopeful than anything else right now. I think that the narrative has been tragedy for the last 2 years, and I think people are stepping up and people are sick of it. And I think a lot of this generation is saying, we don't want this to be our story anymore. We can actually step up. We can be the generation that turns the tide on this. And I have a lot of hope. And I see leadership everywhere, in all quarters. And it's so inspiring. And to the extent that this film and other initiatives can be part of that conversation, it's fantastic. But I really believe that this is the moment where, like other ills in our society that we've sort of laid slowly to rest, that this is the moment for bullying, and the turning point is now.